So let's get started. First off, we're going to talk about the porting assistant for .NET. This is a tool that we use to bring in this thing that we call enterprise modernization. What we like to say is we're refactoring the legacy enterprise technology portfolios by combining them towards more modern infrastructures, architectures, and organizational patterns. It's the combination of behavioral and technological efforts across three areas together that drive maximum benefits of digital transformation. These benefits is more uptime, faster fixes, increased response times, improved end user experiences, and so on. So generally, the following problems occur during a porting effort. If you've ever upgraded from .NET Framework 2 to .NET Framework 3.5, I'm sure you experienced a couple of headaches. I know I did. It wasn't just as easy as saying switch to target framework, click a button, and everything runs. Maybe it was the toolings that we used, but it took a while to make everything work nicely. So it's difficult to really analyze and estimate just how compatible an application is from .NET Framework to .NET Core or .NET 5 now. And just how much work is going to be required to do this upgrade or a port. Generally, developers have to manually check the packages through search engines, NuGet, trial and error, and it's a very time-consuming process. They have to repeat for just about every single application that you want to bring up. Sometimes it's kind of like, can't we just make a new application instead of porting it? Or just use some of the old code libraries and paste them in, but we know that that doesn't work as much as we want it to. So we do this thing called porting, which as a developer group, I'm sure you're all familiar with. So during this porting phase, your developers use various IDE features and plugins to upgrade the third-party NuGet packages to .NET 5, .NET Core. I'm just going to use .NET 5 after this. As many of the packages are just incompatible. You don't have a right replacement for it, and you have to wade through all the errors in the IDE and warnings to really find which packages are incompatible and which packages are incompatible with each other. It can be a bit of a struggle, and that's one of the reasons that we have the porting agent available for everybody to use. It gives us some extra guidance and reduce some of the frustration for your .NET 5 porting efforts. So the porting assistant for .NET is an open source analysis tool that scans the old .NET Framework applications and generates a .NET 5 compatibility assessment. It helps you port your applications faster. It helps you analyze your code faster. You can identify incompatibilities and suggest known replacements, thus reducing the manual effort it takes to do this porting. It allows you to quickly prioritize your .NET Framework application portfolio to generate .NET 5 compatibility assessment reports. And this makes it easy to prioritize your applications for porting on the level of effort required. You get to reduce the manual effort with the porting assistant for .NET. You get to have your incompatibilities identified, and the .NET 5 APIs and packages from your .NET Framework application are already automatically found. It also finds known replacements, which reduces the manual effort of searching for replaceable packages and APIs. One other thing to note, which is a part of the thing I love, is that the porting assistant has an open source data set. So this allows for an evergreen data set, which means you can always get the latest suggestions from AWS and the open source community. You'll always have up-to-date insights and recommendations. So the porting assistant, how do we start? Well, first of all, you want to know the target framework that you want to get to. The porting assistant for .NET supports .NET Core 3.1, .NET 5 as target, and you need at least .NET Framework 3.5 or greater as the source. Currently, it supports Windows services and ASP.NET applications. The workflow is pretty straightforward. You install the application on the developer machine. You need the solution file. You plug it into the porting tool and you run your analysis and you get to view everything. So it's so simple. We're just going to run through it really quick here. I already have it installed, and hopefully we got a thumbs up that the screen sharing is still good. All right, and so we have the application right here called the Porting Assistant for .NET. And you can just easily get started. At the first time, you need to sign in with AWS credentials. And this is just to store items in the S3 buckets that you're going to use to do the assessments. So we can easily go ahead, assess a new solution, and we need to choose the solution file. So plugging along, I have a couple of solution files, and we're just going to use one, who knows, Contoso. So the assessment process can take a few seconds up to a couple of minutes, depending on how complex the application is. This current one that I have as Contoso is it's a non-trivial application. It's kind of large and has a lot of problems with it. It's a bit old, but I found it be a really good example of something that you'd want to use the porting assistant on. Also, you can have multiple assessed solutions within here, so you can track your portfolio and easily be able to tell when you've ported specific applications to .NET Core 3.1 or .NET 5. Additionally, there's a variety of reports that are available to you, and you can see the analysis either through output files like CSVs or text files with basically logs. Like I said, this was a bit of a complicated one, so it might take a while. In the meantime, I'm going to toggle over to the App2Container portion of the talk, and we'll come back to this one later. So here I am. Oh, running Windows on Windows on Windows. That's my life. So here is App2Container. And what we have is App2Container is a command line tool for modernizing .NET and Java. Oops, what happened? Excuse me for 1 second while there we go. So we use this to modernize or containerize .NET and Java applications into containers. You can easily modernize and standardize your deployment and operations through the use of containers. They're everybody's best friends these days. So with App2Container, you can take either a Java or .NET application and move it to run in ECS or EKS, but it basically produces a Docker file or a Kubernetes pod for you. With this tool, we built in some of the best practices right into it. App2Container analyzes and builds an inventory of all the applications running in virtual machines on-prem or in the cloud. You simply select the application you want to containerize, and App2Container packages the application's artifacts and its dependencies into container images. It also configures the network ports for you. it generates images for the Elastic Container Service, or ECS, the tasks and Kubernetes pod definitions. App2Container also provisions, through CloudFormation, the infrastructure and the CI/CD pipeline required to deploy the containerized .NET or Java application. With App2Container, you have a simple CLI interface for Windows and Linux. Here's some of the supported operating systems and application servers on the screen. With App2Container, you can have it work on-prem, in VMs, EC2, or the clouds. And here's a quick demo for us. So here we're going to get started with the App2Container. We can begin, here's the product homepage. From here, you can access the documentation as well as other resources about App2Container. Additionally, you can go ahead and download and install the latest version of App2Container, which I'm going to go ahead and do right now. Now we're going to go ahead and launch the IIS Management Console. You can see there's a simple standard web application called sample MVC app, which is exposed on port 8080. We'll navigate to that application, and this is the one we're going to be containerizing. I'm sure we're all familiar with this guy. So let's go back to the command prompt, and here we'll be installing App2Container. There's a prompt for a few questions. First, accept the terms and conditions, and there you go, it's installed. Now we're going to go ahead and initialize it with App2Container init. And after we do this, it's going to prompt us for some basic questions, like where going to store the artifacts that are generated, which profile, AWS profile, we're going to use. And there's also a section that's going to ask for where we're going to store some of the other artifacts, the application artifacts. So with this, you're going to have one master template stored on the machine itself, and we'll have additional nested templates stored within the S3 buckets. Also, if we're going to make use of the feature to create the respective CI/CD pipelines, then these artifacts are also stored in S3. Here you can opt in or out to reporting the usage metrics. And also, you can select to sign the generated Docker images right here. Oh, with the logs too. And there we go. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to see what kind of applications are available on this machine. With that, we just have to use this App2Container and inventory as the command. So here we have two applications, and we have this one called the sample MVC app. It's running on port 8080. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this identifier, which I'm going to use in the next steps. So once we have this information, we're going to run the analyze command for the specific application that we want to containerize and use the respective application ID that we just copied. And how we do that is we just go ahead, type App2Container and analyze with the application ID that we just pasted in. Sorry, that we just copied and are pasted in now. What will happen now is it checks what is deployed, and based on the information, it's going to create a recommendation. For example, how big the machine will be that they'll actually be deployed on, and what might be the base image necessary for deploying the machine. From the analysis command, there's two files that are of interest, and that is, let's see, click in here. We have the report.txt and the analysis.json. So this report.txt file is just a simple text file based on the findings of the analysis. If there are any connection strings, you'll find them in here. The more complicated the app, the more stuff you'll have. So let's take a look at this JSON. So we have the base image here. It is an ASP.NET application, version 4.72. Therefore, we should be aiming for Windows Server Core, LTS image, which is supported by ECS, which is the solution I'm aiming for. Based on the recommendations over here, the image will be based on the file back, where the files will be copied from, and any particular features that are going to be deployed. This information is necessary for providing the actual container with the respective information, so we can have a one-to-one feature set within the container as well. So once we figured out what is there, we can say, let's go ahead and generate the container or containerize this particular application. So as you can see, all the commands that you need to containerize are printed out already. This is helpful by providing the items you need to type out, and the rest is a fairly straightforward process. So just copy it and paste it in. So what are we going to do with the containerize command is generate a Docker image. Also, some other artifacts will be part of the Docker file image, such as the binaries and IIS that were identified, and these are stored within a certain back that will be copied and be part of the Docker image that will deploy to AWS. Now that we're done with this command, we have an image, and we have the image and deployment artifacts that can be used to generate the actual deployment. So let's take a look at that. So it has the image name, the exposed port, and you can also adjust items like the CPU, memory, and security options. If today you have an application that is integrated within your domain, you can leverage App2Container, provide a little bit of information, and it'll take care of most of the heavy lifting. If your application needs to be domain joined, well, you can take care of most of that by having the option to create group managed service accounts. Here, we can check what was generated. Let's take a look. You can see these IS sample application images. It downloaded the base images to this machine. The next step is to generate the app deployments. And we're going to just take this command to generate the deployment. So this one up in the quotes right here. So what this is doing is it generates the templates that are necessary for the execution of the CloudFormation template. What we now see is the recommended deployment command for CloudFormation. And so we can take a look at the deployment files right here. It's the deployment master template that has been parameterized, and it has the subsequent nested templates available. Now, if we head back to the command prompt, here we go. With just the standard CloudFormation deploy command, you can go ahead and execute the necessary steps. So we're going to take this command right here. I'm going to paste it in, and we're just going to run it. We do this so that you can configure it if you need to do any special parameters or change things. This might take a little bit, but what we see is the image will be uploaded to the container registry. Here again, it's going to go ahead and leverage that container registry. And the creation of the cluster is done. So we navigate to the ECS dashboard, and we see that App2Container has already created the ECS cluster and task definition and integrate it with the CloudWatch insights. If we take a look at the CloudFormation dashboard, we can see the nested templates have been executed by the master template. So all these nested ones we were talking about earlier. So let's take a look at the application itself that has been containerized. Here I'm just going to find the load balancer URL. And here we go. Here's the application that has been containerized. In the end, we're able to move the application running on-prem without much additional effort to get it up and running on the cloud. And it was a very straightforward process. And the CI/CD pipeline is already in place. So that's it for the App2Container demo. And if we go back to the porting assistant, check out this Contoso solution here. As we can see, there were a lot of reference projects in it and a lot of incompatible projects, a lot of incompatible APIs, build errors, various porting actions. And if we can export the assessment reports, or we can go ahead and click on some of the different packages inside of here to find out what might work and what might not work. So we also have the project references, which, that we've seen this before, but it helps you to get a higher understanding, especially if you're not familiar with the application itself. You have the different APIs that were called, and of course, a list of the source files for each project. So we can go ahead and hit the big blue button. I should have made it red, but it's blue. And of course, you can choose to copy it to a new location, which is the suggested practice. But if you're feeling brave, you can go ahead and modify the source in place. I am not that brave, so I'm going to go ahead and choose a new folder, which you won't see because it's on another screen, but I'm just going to call it test port. I can type. All right, I couldn't call it test port because I don't know how to type. So we're going to go ahead and save that, and it's going to do its best to port over the application to .NET 5. And while it's doing that, it's going to do all these checks, find the incompatibilities. Here we have .NET 5 as the selected framework. And it's going to go ahead and port that one project in the whole Contoso application that I have set up here. So if we go ahead and select them all except for that first one, which we're already working on, and set it up to port, it's going to go ahead and try its best to port it, which might take a little while again. While we're doing that, we can export the assessment reports into a zip file, which I can't seem to type, and it's actually because my keyboard isn't working. Well, that one was unexpected. What's going on here? That. All right, that was unexpected, but as we know, not everything happens as you plan it to, so we're going to go ahead and open that back up with a new porting assistant instance. Well, my keyboard works again. What is the rule that if something can go wrong, it will go wrong? So let's go ahead and try to do this one more time. Oh yeah, I can do it. And let's go ahead and try to find where I saved this file. All right, we're just gonna go ahead, click the port button and see where this is gonna go. Okay, well, while this is working, I'm gonna go ahead and I wanted to talk about this. It wasn't on the agenda, but since we have some time, why not? And let's see. So this is something that really doesn't get a lot of attention, but as you know, SDKs are the heart of working with any service that you don't happen to write. Like if you're going to use any cloud provider like Azure or AWS or GCP or whatever, there's probably an SDK you need to talk with. What we have is a comprehensive SDK for .NET on AWS, which lets you interact with all of our services. And if there isn't anything that currently is out there, you can always use REST APIs to interact with them. But what this does, it allows you to easily create applications and services of your own that can use AWS services in the languages you prefer, like C# or even PowerShell, and go ahead and get building. All right, so it says we've successfully ported 7 projects. Click View Log to view the results. So we have a simple text file with an awful lot of results here. Target versions, executed files. It's not so pretty in text file. Who likes text files? Let's just go look at it. So we can see, yep, that's the guy. We click on this one, we see that we still have some build errors. We have ported it. There's been some conversions going on. And please let me type, yay. We're gonna export the file and I'm actually gonna find it this time because I copied the path. Test. Of course, we have some Excel sheets for the NuGet packages that were found to be compatible and incompatible. So all this stuff is at your fingertips to find. We have the output of the project conversion, which will be popping up. So we've done all of these, and the interface basically shows the same thing, but this is good if you're scaling out lots of projects. And we also have one for the source files and one for the APIs. So it can tell you where your incompatibilities are, which ones were ported successfully, and their portability. For instance, this initial migrations.cs file is going to need a little bit of work to get it going.